Hello. How to handle or deal with divorce stress. This is part one of a mini 3-part series on dealing with divorce stress, because these are bite-sized videos. But today we're going to look at what stress is. Now, we know what it feels like, but where does it come from? It's a word bandied around, but let's unpick it just a little bit. Originally, stress was something that was a response to a life-threatening situation. And primitively, often the example is given of being threatened by a saber-toothed tiger, an ancient tiger. So the response then is we need energy in the arms and the legs, the limbs, in order to either run, to fight, or to fight. So fight or flight. And then once the threat is gone, the body can go back to status, go back to balance. However, what we've evolved, what we've developed over time is stress to pretty much any type of threat to our lives. When we get into that really stressed habit, anything that feels threatening, which obviously divorce is a life-changing situation, so that can trigger a lot. But we can also get into the habit of anything. Somebody says something we don't like or we don't agree with or whatever. Sometimes people can have a stress response to that. So what we've done by that is that means that if there's a stress situation over a long period of time, then that fight or flight response is being triggered all the time. That means that hormones are being released, that energy is moving to the limbs and the organs are being depleted. And it also means that mental responses are very much on a black or white line of thinking. Stress also happens, you could also describe it as you're in position A and you want to be in position B. You want to be in place A and you want to be in B, but you're in A, and that gap is causing the stress. And if the place that we want to be is one that we have no control over, then obviously the stress is exacerbated. And if the stress is, if that place is where somebody else is controlling that situation, then that is when it's really important to come back to what is it we can do for ourselves. So in that really stressed situation, when you're really uptight, lots of anxiety, lots of busy thoughts, the first thing to do is to pause and breathe. Recognize that you're in that place, you're feeling out of control, you're feeling threatened, you're feeling all those anxiety feelings. So take time out to breathe, and breathe down into the belly, which is the abdomen just below the navel. And by breathing down there, you're bringing the thoughts, quietening the thoughts, stopping that shallow breathing, which feeds those busy thoughts, and bringing the breath down and allowing it. I mean, already just talking about it, you can feel the calmness coming by that simple action, and stay in that place until that calmness comes through. And that can be really helpful habit to get into. When you first start, you might need to actually take time out to practice that. But once it's a habit, you can do it when you're in a stressful situation, maybe a confrontation or something like that. And it might seem counterintuitive to stop and take time and breathe. But actually, because you're then quietening the mind, bringing the energy back into balance, not only are you is it a healthier place to be, but you're also going to be able to make better decisions, rather than when people are very stressed, they tend to be scattered, doing a bit here, a bit there, and nothing really gets done properly. So overall, it is time well spent, even though it might seem counterintuitive. It might seem you haven't got time to do it, but in the long run, it is worth doing. And as I say, once you've got that habit, then you can do it much more quickly. Of course, part of this is about acceptance of the situation. As I said before, if you're in place A and you want to be in B, but that's out of your control, then there has to come a point where there's acceptance. Even just a step of acceptance will help, because nothing else is going to change until there is that point. Now, that doesn't mean liking the situation, but it does mean accepting what it is you can't change. And it's that resistance to accepting it that is causing so much pain, suffering, and of course the stress. Another thing that is useful to bear in mind is that it's much easier to get stuck in the negative than it is to stay with the positive. You'll know this if ever you've had, sometimes I give the example of a school report, but it can be any situation, maybe some feedback at work or whatever, where the majority of it is positive, but maybe there's one or two or have little bits of negative or feedback. And for some reason, we prefer to dwell on that than the positive that we've been given. So what I'm saying here is that for some reason, it's harder to hold on to the positive than it is to get caught up in the negative, and we lose that balance. So it means that we have to actually put some effort into staying in the positive, and that gets easier with practice, but it is something that we have control over. And one of the ways you can do that is to visualize the outcome that you want from a difficult situation. So you can picture it, or hold the idea. Obviously make it something that you going to have control over. So you can't visualize necessarily somebody changing their mind, but you can visualize the best outcome that you can make happen for yourself. Hold that idea, hold that visualization, hold that picture, and it'll be much easier then to handle any negative aspects that pop in from various different areas or people. So, and again, if you can do that, maybe the last thing before you go to sleep at night, think of it the first thing when you wake up in the morning, get into a habit of doing that, you'll find that it's much easier to stay in that positive place, then that will reduce the stress. So those are the 3 tips from today. This part 1 of how to deal with divorce stress is practice that deep breathing, calmness, bringing calmness into you, accepting the situation or even little bits of it, even if you don't like it, and practice positivity by working at holding the ideas that you want that you can make happen. How to deal with divorce stress, part 1. Thank you.